Melody. We're in my bedroom today, and today we're going to be talking about organization and the organization tips that will really transform your mindset into the simplicity mindset, because decluttering is an act. It's a to-do that you have to set, and you do it once a year, you do it a couple times a year when you're just getting started. Simplicity is something you take with you forever, and it takes effort at first to think like that and to program yourself to see things in a level-headed way, to see things as they are and to be able to act accordingly. Simplicity is a mindset to pick the most simple solution whenever you're presented with an array of solutions, to pick the most simple and personal solution. So knowing yourself enough. I know myself that my values are efficiency and design, the aesthetics of something. So if the solution fits those two and it's simple, I know it's going to work. So I want to talk about the 3 things today that hold the simplicity mindset back. And the very first one is perfectionism. Perfectionism, or orderliness, it goes hand in hand. Very orderly people are oftentimes perfectionists. And perfectionism is caused from at a young age. Oftentimes the oldest kid is the most perfectionist because they were looking up to the parent, not up to other siblings. And so that standard is very high. It's really high for a kid to reach because no kid can perform at the level of a parent. No kid. So they are often very orderly, but also you might just have the mindset for it. I've seen plenty of kids that are younger that are very driven and very intense. The idealistic or the very perfectionist mindset. When dealing with perfectionism, it often gets in the way of progress, because when things are good enough, they're never good enough to someone who's perfectionist if they're not healthy. So when someone is healthy and they're perfectionist, and they're often humane, thinking about others, and they are often realistic. They're in the moment and they're rising to the occasion. And so perfectionism can get in the way, because if you need to start a project, for instance, if you want to work on a hobby, you're thinking about, oh, well, I got to get the easel, I got to get the paints, I got to have this set up first. Everything's got to be perfect before you ever get started, and then you expect yourself just to be an expert. I really want the picture to come out like this if I'm a photographer, and I would really like everything to be perfect on the first go around. Well, that's not going to happen, so then you just never get started, and that's getting in the way of progress and getting in the way of living your purpose and your values. And also it can get in the way of your scheduling, and your schedule is so rigid, it doesn't take into account time to relax or time for flexibilities. Schedules should be not too rigid. It should allow for things to flow. It should have some leeway in there, so it's not constricting, so that it's actually encouraging peace of mind. So order should be encouraging peace of mind, not making everybody be afraid, because they're going to not keep the schedule, or there's going to be a crumb on the counter. It shouldn't be encouraging fear. Fear is a motivator. There are very fearful people that are highly driven because they don't want to fail. You don't want to use fear like that. Ideally, you want to be tapping into yourself and into good things like courage and other things like that in order, not tapping into fear, because fear is a motivator. But we don't want to use that because it has a lot of negatives alongside, and that's what I really want to focus on. Fear is divided into 2 categories. Fear of security, so having wealth or having lots of stocking up, basically driven by security and survival. And the second thing is driven by identity, self-esteem, either how you see yourself. You want to see yourself as unique or special or talented, whatever you feel like, authentic. You have to examine your priorities. For me, again, my priorities are efficiency and design. So that's my priorities. Your priorities is probably going to be different, but you have to design your life according to your priorities, not somebody else's priorities, because that's how you live your purpose and your place in this world, is by knowing what your skills are and knowing what you're good at from when you were younger, and knowing about your own personality. Maybe your childhood is driven by performance. That is not good, because then you're always building extra things that don't serve you in any way, because you're trying to hit marks instead of living by your value system. So make sure that your choices aren't driven by fear in that respect, that they're driven by what you know about yourself and courage and purpose over fear. And then the next thing is security. Security is important. It's biological to want to survive, to further your species. These are all things that our ancestors have been doing for a long time. And even though themes replay themselves out, and even though wisdom should not be ignored, we don't need to stock up a lot, especially if you don't live in the country. You don't need to stock up a ton. You don't need to make your whole house into a store. It depends on your lifestyle and, again, your values. But choices shouldn't be driven by fear. You should be reasonable for sure. I never encourage frivolousness. You know me, and I'm not a frivolous person. I never spend money I don't have. But while I don't encourage frivolousness, I also don't encourage the other end. We're never taking any risks and always living in a state of fear, because there is no growth in that. Business and investing and all those things are about risk. You have to take risks eventually. And if you're a very fearful person, people can sense it off of you. You can actually smell fear. People can actually smell in the perspiration of people that jump out of a plane their fear as they're doing it versus people running on a treadmill. Fear is something that you can sense, and it's instability. So try not to make choices driven by fear. But when it comes to security, risks are important to take. And if you have very little resources, I'm not minimizing that. I'm just saying the risks need to be even more calculated, because you don't have room to play with when it comes to risk. So for instance, people that have lots of money, the big investors, they can play with real estate and Bitcoin. They can do lots of things like that. But if you have limited resources, you have to put it where it matters. Got to put it towards education, a calculated risk, and not just any degree, but a degree that's going to pay off. If you want freedom and you want to find your purpose, then you have to make those calculated choices like that and be reasonable. Sometimes you have to make the choices like that, but growing is about risk sometimes. So make sure you're not on either end. You're not frivolous, just going traveling, spending all your retirement, and not thinking about the future, because that's not independence and that's not autonomy. One day the bill's going to come in, and at the same time you're not on the other end, and you're never taking risks, and you're just stocking up and eating as much as you can and saving as much as you can, because you're in that mindset of we're about to get wiped out. That's not a good mindset of peace of mind, and everybody around you can sense that fear, and it's making everybody else anxious too. So peace of mind really helps organization and minimalism. It helps it in so many ways. And so the last thing I want to say is habits. Habits are the last component here. We have perfectionism, it's not standing in the way. We have fear, it's not standing in the way. But the last thing is habits. And habits are driven by your personality, whether it's perfectionist or otherwise. It's driven by tradition. A lot of things are habits we're trained into us. Eat everything on your plate even if you're not hungry. Consider if everything that you're taking with you is something you want to be taking. For instance, if you are just achieve something, you want to be celebrating it with ice cream every day. Maybe that's how you celebrate it with. Make sure the habits and the traditions you're taking are actually in line with your value system. So when it comes to identity, sometimes you can get so caught up on your identity and how you're doing and things serving you, and not thinking about how it makes other people feel. So for instance, anxiety makes other people feel very anxious, and also taking part in the holidays, that's just a little something for me. It makes other people really happy. And that's just a little something. It means very little to me to put that effort to make other people happy. So I don't cut it out, even though it doesn't go in line with efficiency and design, because that's my values is also caring about other people. As a perfectionist, we have to look out for other people. And this mindset of paying attention to what other people care about is really important. It's even benefited someone like Pat. Pat's right here, sitting right here. But it's even benefited Pat because I don't just push myself onto Pat. I make sure that she's receptive to that. I care more about her when I get outside of myself as well. So it's good to get out of the fear mindset, because that mindset permeates everything, so much so that you're inside of yourself all the time and not taking into account environment and working together with people and caring about people in a way that doesn't include fear. The habits that you form, make sure that the music you listen to, the people you surround yourself, friends that you're hanging out with, people on the radio or television that you listen to, and also the music you listen to, because a lot of singers and artists are very anxious or have very troubled lives, and that permeates through their music. And so if you're relating to that in big ways, question what things are you taking from your past that's causing all of these things to be building up. A lot of times people are drawn to very familiar things. Therefore, what you are drawn to is showing you you. So make sure that that is something that you want. Are those people or those musicians or those voices you listen to full of anxiety, or are they peaceful? Make sure you surround yourself and everything else becomes effortless. When you surround yourself like that with the books and things like that, that is peaceful and caring about others, then you become peaceful and care about others too. And it becomes effortless. And organization and minimalism, all of that is effortless. And when people don't fall in line with that, they're leaving stuff out or things like that, then you can be humane and work around it, find a system to work with it, or find a way to reach other people. You should just work on those 3 things and your life will change. Everything else will work itself out so much easier if you just work on those 3 things. So I hope you guys like this video. I'll see you guys next Sunday in the next organization video. Thank you guys so much for watching.